Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Book O'Clock, where we clock in with a new book to give it an honest review. Today, I will be doing The Wicked King. This podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Music. Welcome to my honest book reviews. I'll be breaking these reviews into 4 parts. 1, the book title, author, synopsis, and tags I'd use to classify it. 2, my spoiler-free general review of the book as a whole. 3, my spoiler warning, followed by my tells, feels during the book. Mild spoilers to my favorite and least favorite parts. And 4, my overall rating of the book out of 10. Let's get those pages turning. I am going through The Wicked King, which is The Folk of the Air, Book 2 by Holly Black. You must be strong enough to strike and strike and strike again without tiring. Jude has bound the Wicked King, Cardan, to her and made herself the power behind the throne. Navigating the constantly shifting political alliances of Fairy would be difficult enough if Cardan were biddable, but he does everything in his power to humiliate and undermine her. When it comes to the all too clear that someone close to Jude means to betray her, Jude must uncover the traitor and find her own complicated feelings for Cardan to maintain control as a mortal in the fairy world. Yeah, that's pretty much the summary of it. My tags would be fiction, fantasy. Now we have a forced proximity between the main characters, enemies to lovers, and I will reiterate again, as they even mention in the synopsis this time, political. Review. This book, The Wicked King, is more of a concept on how to keep power. Book 1, like I described before, if you check out the review on that book, if you haven't seen it or listened to it yet, is very much a prequel to this book, and it develops on getting power and becoming one with what you want to be and developing a role in Fairy. Book 2 is she got the power. She has the power. Now, how do you keep power once you get it? So the whole book is her toying with her enemies, her friends, people who might betray her, trying to figure out how to stay in power now that she won. It still remains incredibly political. It's all about making alliances, finding the other kingdoms, the other generals, fighting with the king of the queen of the sea, the other fairies. It's political, it's alliances, it's strong. It's a much stronger book, in my opinion, than book 1. The female main character is amazing. She develops even further in this book. She becomes smarter. She makes great decisions. She makes some bad decisions too. She's toying with her thoughts of herself, of Fairy, of Cardan. Relationships starting to build. Her and Cardan have a forced proximity now. So unlike in book 1, they actually have conversations together. And you start to learn about them and their truths behind each of their actions. So why does Cardan act the way that he does? Why are his behaviors the way that they are? Why is Jude the way she is? Why do the spies act the way that they are? So you get to learn a lot about all of the characters you got to know and love in book 1 and really develop upon them in book 2. It's got a bit of a theme of kids playing at war. So everybody in Fairy, as a lore of the fairy world, is that humans don't live very long, but fairies do. So their lives are much longer than mortals. So when 2 young children essentially take the throne, they're trying to be the king and advisor to the High Court of Fairy, where these elder fairies are like, you guys are just children, you don't know political, you don't know alliances, you don't know things. So it's a kids playing at pretending they know better than the adults, which isn't a problem. It's just kind of got like a taste of millennials taking over the offices and the older generation being like, you don't know how to run a country. just because they're running it differently and doing different things. There is interesting betrayals in this book. There's characters you get to know and love, and then suddenly they turn their backs on you, and you don't see it coming. There's an actual romance development. There's kidnapping. The plot does start a little bit slow, but it is a better plot. It has a really good ending. The twist at the end leads really well into the finale. The main character, female and male, have really good dialogues between each other. You start to be able to see a friendship, an alliance, a communication between them actually start to build, so that enemies to lovers section that people broadcast this series as actually begins to develop, because they'll actually start talking to each other. Unlike in book 1 where they were just bullying each other and yelling at each other. But we'll get into that now with my spoiler warning. From here on out, I will be reflecting on my feelings during the book, and this may contain mild spoilers. If you'd like to read this book for yourself, you may clock out now, check out my other reviews, or recommend more books for me to review. Again, a book about war and politics. Slow start. She's trying to control Cardan by ruling Fairy, so she tricked Cardan into taking the throne in book 1 while having him under her control, and so she makes all the decisions while he just sits there acting as head of the throne, which gives it the forced proximity feel, which I do love a good forced proximity romance. And she really just controls Cardan, and Cardan doesn't have a lot of trust for her because she betrayed him in the end of book 1, and so they have to redevelop the relationship they were slowly starting to develop in book 1 and see where it gets them in book 2. This leads to them having actual real dialogue, the relationship development between them. You see real enemies to lovers comes in with like their real first kiss. They actually express like feelings towards each other and have a passionate kiss. And it's like, oh, there's gonna be a romance now. Not immediate, like it's still gonna be a slow burning development, but you can tell that the characters are fighting with the fact that they hate each other, love each other, don't trust each other, want to be with each other all the time, can't stand to be next to each other. There's a huge power balance between finding if they hate each other or want each other dead, or really just want to do this together, but they're both too strong-willed of characters to admit one way or the other. Cardan has huge character development in this book and becomes a spy, a king. He learns to play like the same psychological warfare that Jude does. He becomes a strategist. He becomes really smart, and you start to develop actual interest in him in book 2 because they really spend time expressing who he is and what you want from him. And so I really started to enjoy Cardan in book 2. The fear he felt when she was kidnapped, when he reveals that in the end of the book, was so nice, because that's when you first really start to see like true relationship feeling develops between them. She gets kidnapped and he panics. He's like, I don't know, she was dead. I didn't know what to do. And so he then suggests a marriage proposal to her so that he can take over the throne properly, learn to rule, but she doesn't have to step down. And the marriage proposal, exchange of power, was such a twist I didn't see coming. Because, like, they hate each other. All they do is talk about hating each other. And he was like, why don't we do an alliance of a marriage proposal? You give me all the power back, but you don't actually lose any power because now you're the queen of fairy. I love it. The end, when she has to save Cardan because Cardan gets poisoned, and she has to trick Baelkin. All of her interactions with Baelkin in the second book, which is Cardan's older brother, are really fun. As much as they're kind of effed up because of what he does to her in the sea court underwater, the things he makes her do, really effed up, and her kidnapping section was kind of really interesting to read, but the way she wins against Baelkin, tricks him, and then kind of unintentionally causes his death. She really didn't want to kill him, but she did, which then developed into Cardan having to make a very sudden, sporadic decision, which led to a huge plot twist at the end of the book, which really, really set in stone reading the final book, where he changes the game. He has just married her, and then the plot changes, and nobody knows about it except for Jude, and it just crashes in on it. She won everything and then lost everything so suddenly, and the book ends. It's a really, really good development in book 3. There are a few scenes in this book that I really loved, like developing between them. When he starts to express that he likes her and he gets drunk and he's like, "Kiss me again," he says. "Kiss me until I'm sick of it." And after a moment, his eyes flutter close. His voice falls into a whisper, as though he's talking to himself. "If you're the sickness, I suppose you can't also be the cure." Oh, I just really love that line. I thought it was a good line. He's very eloquent with the way he speaks to her. Sometimes. I mean, he's king of fairy. He's raised well. Well, he's not raised well. He's kind of raised really shitty. We'll get into that later. That's in book 3. But good development. I like this book. I liked it a lot better than book 1. Because you actually see the romance, which is what I'm here for. Don't get me wrong. I still like politics of fairy. I love fairy. But I'm a romance girl. I like romance. I like smut. Doesn't got no smut, but the romance starts to build in book 2. The kidnapping drama, them getting separated, the forced proximity really adds to passion for me, and I like that stuff. So I would rate book 2, The Wicked King, a 7 out of 10. If you'd like to read this book, let me know what you think. If you think my review is stupid, if you think it's great, let me know other books you want me to review. But for now, I'm clocking out. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!